to try and picture the whole massivity and the whole perfection. Parsha Boi Zochtor Liyos HaParsha HaMesaperes Al Geulas Gerosom V'Yetziosam Shel Bnei Yisrael MiMitzrayim. Parsha Boi is a very special and remarkable parsha in the sense that it's the parsha that actually tells about going out of Egypt. Parsha Shmois and Parsha Vayiro, they deal with with the whole union of preparations and the story of the Golus in Mitzrayim and all the details of how Moshe promised that there's going to be a great Geula. But the actual story of the Geula per se, the actual going out of Mitzrayim in action, is that disturbing? No, it's not disturbing. Is the actual going out of Mitzrayim in action is only in Parsha Boi. So the Rebbe said Parsha Boi is a very remarkable parsha in that it actually tells of the going out. However, we have to pay careful attention to this one detail. I want to it'll make it easier to understand the whole thing. The parsha begins with a commandment, with a tzivui. It's not a story or a dialogue between Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu. The Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Come to Paroi, Boi el Paroi." Now, the very fact that the Eibishter says to Moshe, "Come to Paroi," doesn't quite make sense. Because the Rabbeinu Shalom is the Mashaleach, he's what you call the sender, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the Shaliach. So he should have said to Moshe, Lech el Paroi. What does he say? Boi el Paroi. That's number one. And secondly why does the Eibishter at this moment need to go with Moshe? Boi means I'm coming with you. If I say to you, Boi ti or Boi makom ploini, that means we're going together. So why at this particular moment does Hashem say it? And if you look carefully at the beginning of the parsha, then you don't really find that he did anything special. The Rebbe says Boi el Paroi, and then just all sorts of other things sort of come into the picture. There's like a special announcement on the part of Hashem by way of commandment to Moshe that you must go to Paro and I'm coming with you. Oh. And so that itself demands an explanation. Yeah, and then later other details follow, which are also significant. Come on. And then this is the parasha which tells about the going out of Egypt. And yet the name of the parasha is the word that Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, come with me to Paro. So why should the whole parsha be called on that word? And the Rebbe has a klal, which we know about, that the word of a parsha, the name of a parsha, is very special according to Hashgacha Pratiyus. That indicates that the whole parsha is called by that name. That word, as it were, sums up and fits the whole parsha. So the whole parsha doesn't really deal much with it. The whole parsha deals with the going out of Egypt, Papoyo, and all the details of how they got out and how there was a Korban Pesach and the whole thing. What's Boi got to do with all that? You follow?
Is it tied into Har Sinai, where they come to finally the Yidden come to Hashem?
I'm sorry?
Does it have anything to do with Har Sinai, that they came to Hashem?
Har Sinai?
Har Sinai.
Har Sinai, they came. Well, in a way it does, but they weren't holding at that moment. On the contrary, they were way still deep in Mitzrayim. And Paro was still the big boss. He was still Paro. He broke later on, but at that moment he was still Paro. With all the Tokyo. And Moshe had to come to him to try and persuade him. That didn't work yet. So why at this particular moment did Hashem say to him, come with me to Paro? You follow? That's the whole thing. So everybody's going to forgive me if I'm going to say L'chaim on my coffee. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shahakel niyo b'dvarim.
Amen.
Wow, that's really a decent piece of coffee. I'm a bit of a maven on coffee. Don't worry, Mendel. There's always littleness shyness. Oh, I'm still doing telepathy. It's Mum's telepathy. I was very angry with myself today that I didn't have time to call up Yosef and ask him, how's he doing? We don't see him lately, you know. The book said, it's amazing. I just didn't get around to it, but I was angry with myself that I didn't do it. You know.
Angry.
So that's basically that's the nakuda. And let's get moving because it's really yes. Bnei Yisrael mitzrayim liyachem mayos yesh nois aveda kosher u'mefarechet. Terrible time of Golus, Aveda Koshim of Reches, that's the main news of our parsha. Mekivan Hashem shall a parsha, and since we know that the name of a parsha, the Koshula Teichnoi, is bound up to the content of the parsha Kuloi. Yeah, the Shem refers to the whole content of the whole parsha. Yeah, Bora Shemasha Parsha. Sheshmo shel parashas Yetzias Mitzrayim. In Ken, it's clear that the name of the parasha which deals with the going out of Egypt is Boi El Paroi, Kosher Boifen Meyuchad Legulas Mitzrayim. In Ken, that's what the Rebbe said to Moshe, come here to Paroi. That must have to do with the whole going out of Egypt and the amazing events that occurred later. Loirat Befrat. It's not just a detail. Yeah, mitoich, yeah, Michlel, a shlichiyos shel Moshe al Paroi. It's not just a prat that you've got to go again to Paroi. You know, you've been several times, go again. Yeah, it's obviously a very central inyan which affects the whole going out of Egypt and everything. The fact that Hashem gave a special commandment, boy al Paroi. So the Rebbe says, v'tamua. This is amazing. Sharei hatzivui. It's a commandment. Boy el paroi moikiach, that proves to us. Davke sheparoi nimtza b'siyah toiker. That indicates not going out of Egypt, but the paroi is still, you know, a big, heavy balabos. Moshe's got to come to him and ask him. As if the paroi is still at that particular moment, he's still at the height of his power. Yeah, Moshe, who's there? Shenishkoch Elo. Moshe needs to get to paroi. Not paroi needs Moshe. Moshe needs paroi. Ve'ilu Yetzias Mitzrayim is exactly the hepech. Mashma'usa davke lotzes. They're from the whole to do with paroi. Well, ishtachrer, completely to be freed, mihabaloisav shel paroi u'mitzrayim. So here comes says that the whole parsha deals with it, and we've got a tzivui you have to go, and the whole parsha is called on that name. It seems to be the opposite of the message of the parsha. The parsha says he didn't go out of Mitzrayim. Here, paroi is still the big balabos, and Moshe needs to go and ask him. And Hashem says, you go to him. And so he's written clearly what really happened. Just Hashem said to him, you've got to go to him. So the Rebbe says it's like two opposite ends of the walking stick, to use the expression in English. So how do we get that together? So the Rebbe said, big day lahovin zois, oleinu lahovin, mahi beklal mashmaus, atzivui, baal al paroi, Eleinu kois. The Rebbe said, we've got to understand what's this whole inyan of boy el paroi. What does that mean for us nowadays? Based on the cloud, that the Torah is everlasting, and everything written in the Torah is a indication and an instruction to us. What's the instruction nowadays to us? The Paro is already an old historical. He's an old piece of embalmed something underneath the earth. In Mitzrayim, he's no longer of any significance anywhere, except maybe as an archaeological. He's not around anymore. We've progressed generations after Paro. We're in another land already. We have nothing to do with him. What's the big significance, Beklal, for us nowadays to hear, and the whole parashas is calling that Hashem gave a tzivui to Moshe, you must come with me to Paro. So the Rebbe says if we'll understand what that has to say to us, then we'll begin to understand how it's the name of the whole parashah. Yeah. So he said, we have to understand what does it say to us. Hallelujah. And the instructions of the Torah, they're all everlasting. What is the instruction? Hatamuna, which is hidden, b'tzivui boel paroi ko'esh. Yeah, for us. Nowadays, what can it possibly mean? Le'achar shepari meish misman. Pari's already had occurred, he's already pagan a long time ago. V'af ruach hatuma habo mimenu k'vaz batla. All the tumah that Pari brought in, particularly individual Egyptian tumah, is all gone. It's not around anymore. What do we learn from the fact that Hashem said to Moshe, you must come with me to Paro? Ella, sha'omnam Paro harosha mate. That's true. Paro harosha is already dead. Nothing's left of him. Ulam, however, the kol davar shebo ilam yeshno shoyrosh kodesh. V'shoyrosh zeh kodesh, yeah. V'shoyrosh zeh parei shebekedusha kayam gamachshar. So the Rebbe puts in a new word, and he says there's parei shebekedusha. In other words, he's going to make the point in the next chapter immediately that everything that the Torah talks about is how all the inyonim that it mentions are in Kedusha. And then later, from those bechinas, how they are in Kedusha, it all comes down by way of Ishtalshalas that they come out into the world. And sometimes the way they come out into the world can be very different than the way they are in Kedusha. Yeah, for example, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in Perikovo, Benagir to Yisurim, for example. So he says that sometimes people suffer, they have problems or they have pain in the body or all sorts of things that they can suffer. Yeah, so he writes to the Alter Rebbe that really comes from a very, very high madrega, higher than just ordinary life. I mean, I don't wish anybody in Yisurim, but what it means is that if you do have them, that's a sign they come from very, very high. And they come from such a high level that you're not able to see it in the Gashmistic eyes. There it comes down in a way that looks to be almost the opposite of it. It comes from even higher sometimes. It's therefore it comes down in a way that you can't really come to terms with it. Why? Because you're a limited human being and you can't receive such a gilui. When will we receive the gilui? Only when Mashiach will come. After the gilui, then these things will be begilui. You follow? That we see certain things are how they are in Kedusha, but the way they come down into the world, it's very difficult for us to be able. Why? Because we're limited neshamas, we're neshamas begufim, and we see how in our private lives the guf has a bigger covering effect on the neshama and on ruchnias and all those inyanim. So on very high inyanim, and of course the guf, sort of, if particularly if one is very edel, the way we should be, the guf gets in the way, and we're not able to see the great kedusha that's hidden in that thing. So that's what the Rebbe wants to make a point, that there's a long sikha from the Rebbe in Toshim Memches, a long sikha, and also there's a shorter version of it in one of the other Kuti sikhas, where the Rebbe talks about, at the beginning of Pasha Tel, there's embraces, it's when Eila Tel, there's Yitzchak, has written Yitzchak Hoylidus Avraham and so on. And so Rashi brings down over there, Eila Turles Yitzchak, says Rashi, Yaakov Esau Hoamurim B'Parsha. Yaakov and Esau, which are brought down in the parsha. That's what Rashi said. So the question is famous, why did Rashi have to write that in? I mean, when I look a bit further, I see that there's Yaakov and Yosef, they're the children of Yitzchak. And they're told about it in the parsha. Why does Rashi have to write Yaakov Esau Amurim B'Parsha? And therefore, Rashi, the Rebbe learned that what Rashi is showing with that Yaakov and Esau, their real Metzias, is Ha'amurim B'Parsha, the way they're written in the Torah. And that is a very high madrega in Kedusha. What the Torah really means is a high madrega in Kedusha. Later, Esau, he comes down into the world and things are not so good with him. Why? Because he comes direct Nafila, and you read a Chazaka into the world, and that's why Yitzchak wanted to bench him a very special bracha. He wanted to catch him and elevate him back. That was why he wanted to give him a bracha and so on. So the Rebbe uses this sort of principle over there. Everything written in the Torah is really talking about. And the Shiur Kodesh, the Rebbe brings it down over there in Toshim Memches. The Shiur Kodesh says that the Torah talks per Yonim and it makes Ramozim b'tachtoinim. And people think the opposite. The Shiur says that and people think the other way. That the Torah is talking down here and it's sort of making Ramozim to big high in Yonim in Ruchnias. But it's the other way. Really, the Torah is talking in all the high in Yonim and Ruchnias. And it's just throwing Ramozim at what happens down here into the world. Yeah. And then ultimately, through Istaushlis, there can even be a difficult Esau in this world. But in Shurish, how he is in Kedusha, he's pretty high stuff. It's just that Yaakov is even higher stuff. That's the way it was. But that's what the Rebbe means here. The Paroi, Davki, because he's such a strong and massive figure down here in this world, is a similar to the way he is in spirituality. And that's what the Torah really means, is he's very high madrega. And when he comes down into this world, he's very, they're called powerful, and he's got a big position, and everybody wants to be good with him, and everybody wants to be bottled to him. And he's a big trouble to the world of Kedusha down here. Of an Shiur, he's a very high madrega. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to develop on now. What is this Indian of Pare in Ruchnias? And we'll be able to build from that an amazing case how we can say that, that's got a message for us that Moshe had to have Hashem's help to get to Pare. And that's what we're going to see now. So he says, Adayin tzorich lahovin ma shayach hatzivui boi el Pare b'kedusha. If everything in the Torah is kedusha, and that's its real kavanah, then what does that mean in this bracket here that Hashem said, "Let us go to Pare"? So he said, "Azoya masbia." It's written in the Zohar in parashas Shmoi. Azoya masbia madua kosu boi el Paroi v'lo lech el Paroi. Yeah, like the simple question we asked at the beginning, it should be written, "Go to Pare," because Hashem is sending Moshe as his representative and his shliach. So he should have said to Moshe, "Go to Pare." Why does he say, "Let us both come to Pare"? Meaning, let us both come together to Pare. Ki mikivin Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Rebbe said, why is that? So according to the Zohar, Ki Moshe Rabbeinu pachad me'itzem klipas Pare. Hamachuvenas in the Haftarah last week. In the Haftarah, Pare was called Hatanin Hagadol. They call him the big reptile, the very big reptile that's sitting in the way of everything. Tanin Hagadol. Moshe Rabbeinu saw what was the clipper of Pare, and he saw its amazing power. He was Moshe Rabbeinu, according to the Zohar. Moshe Rabbeinu was he said, "I'm sorry, I'm not up to that. I'm not prepared to go in. I'm scared. It's too much for me." Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are you scared? Boi el Paroi, no voi ela shneinu yachad. Let us both go, and if I go with you, then you'll be all right. So, yeah, ahov. Eich shayach loima davar kazeh, yeah, b'kesher leParoi, b'kedusha. How can you say this in kedusha? But Moshe Rabbeinu is scared, and Hashem must say, let's go. In kedusha, how could that possibly be a situation where Moshe was scared? I mean, the whole thing for Moshe is kedusha. Yeah? Why should he be scared in kedusha zayinim? So he said, what is that in kedusha? Well, that's written in the Zohar over there. Very amazing thing. It's written that Moshe Rabbeinu saw that if he wants to go into Paroi, particularly at this particular moment, that Paroi, he saw like a vision of the pneumias of what Paroi really was. And he saw that there were like rooms and tunnels and that he could like chambers, many of these rooms and chambers. When you went into them, and you didn't get there yet, you go in the next, you haven't reached it yet. And you keep going, and then eventually you come to this final chamber, which is absolutely full of, like, atmosphere of pachad, and there you see this huge tanin, this huge reptile, and that's Paroi. That's what he saw. That's what the Zohar could have said. So Moshe Rabbeinu said that. He said he's not prepared for that. He's not prepared to go in through all these, and eventually to reach this huge reptile. He's not prepared to do that. So Kodesh Baruch Hu said to him, okay, I can understand you. Hashem didn't get angry with him. Hashem just said, okay, let's go together. I'm with you. And then Moshe said, oh, you're in there? Okay, here we go. Oh, but Moshe on his own wasn't prepared to go. So that's what the Rebbe said, how can that be in Kedusha? So he says, Ahez barakachu Paroi shebekedusha, Paroi, how it is in Kedusha, Misamel es gilu ha'oiris ha'kigavoim. Paroi represents the highest of all divine lights, ve'esis galusom lamata, but even parua. Paroi is from Lashon parua. What parua means to open up, to break all limitations and open something up, or uncover something which is covered. And so therefore he says, it's the highest madregas in Elikus are parua, being opened, laloi kol seder v'chisur, not according to normal seder ishtaushlas and the normal reckonings of seder ishtaushlas. Gilui kazeh magia rak merkodesh baruch hu be'atzmai. Atzmus u'mahud, the very essence of Hashem Himself. Shalamayla mikol madida, it's beyond any limitation. Seder v'hagvara, or order, or how do you call it, the limitations of what we might call ishtaushlas or ilamas. So what's written over there in the Zohar? It's written that the Zohar teaches that Paroi is from the word to open up, like we said, and to reveal something that's covered, or to let it out in a full and unlimited sort of way, without any hiding. And it's written that the base Paroi is used the expression tongues in Bereshit, the base Paroi. So the Rebbe said there's a bias of Paroi, or the Zohar said, there's a bias, and then there's Paroi himself. And he said, what is Paroi all about? There's a bias which receives some of the Giluim. A bias is like a big kli. He said, of a Paroi himself, he said, he's beyond all of these inyanim, and his mom is like the Atzma. So therefore, what is apparent in the Zohar is that you name it, we got it. In other words, you talk about the highest level in Gilui Oiros, in Oir, which is Maya from Hashem, that in this revelation of Hashem, represented by Paroi, it all just comes out and pours itself out, not by way of Seder Hishtalshalas or normal, what you might call ordered Gilui that there is the way Hashem usually does it. He just, as he pours himself forward beyond all possible limitations. That's what the word pari from Revelation, or undecking something. That's what the word pari means. So it's mashma in the Zohar that's talking about the shoresh of all the earths which are meir. Any madrega, and therefore the Rebbe points out in the Sikha that even what's called in Chassidus oirus aki el yonim, which are klulim, they're included inside the essence of Hashem, even they are nothing compared to Hashem. Gemura. What happens is that pari represents all that gets poured out, but that's all just a revelation. It's not the true Indian of Pari himself. And here, in this particular inyan, Hashem said, I'm going to go with you. This was a moment that the whole source of all these, like Tahaino Atzmas himself, was going to come into Gilui. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu saw that. It's going to be Moshe Gilui HaAtzmas, which is from the highest possible oire. And Moshe said, listen, I'm just a limited man, I'm a very high madrega, but I'm just a madrega. I'm only in a shoma in a group. I can't possibly go in mamish and be mikabel atzmas. I'm not going to be able to take it. You follow? And particularly that this was still before Matan Torah. Therefore Moshe Rabbeinu said, I can't, that's too much. And the shoma in a group can't possibly. So Hashem said to him, you know something, Moshe? You're right. Yeah, you can't possibly, the way things are right now, you can't possibly take that gift. That's too much. Come with me, I'll go with you. So he kind of follows that this is a whole new step towards the Geula. And this is like the story which made possible the Geula. So what is the Geula? The Geula is Gilei Atzmas Ein Sof. You follow? The Geula is Gilei Atzmas Ein. So all the Yidden would say, I'm sorry, Rabbeinu Shalom, we can't take all this Gilei Ein Sof business. We're just little, how are we going to take such a Gilui? How are we going to fly out of Egypt in a minute? With all the things that occur, it's going to be too much for it. So Hashem knew that would be a possibility that they might claim that. So therefore said, listen, let's take your leader. Let's see what he says. And Moshe says, I also can't take it. Moshe said to Hashem, I'm sorry, Azar Gili, I also don't see, I'm scared. So Hashem said to him, oh, okay, you're scared? Yeah, come with me, I'll take him. In other words, the same Atzmas, which is the Atzmas Ein Sof, Pari, he said to Moshe, come with me. In other words, he's like saying, come to me, I'm coming with you to me. I'm giving you the power to find me. That's basically what it means. In other words, the Pari means the pneumius of the Eivusar. That's an amazing idea. And that's why when he came down Lamata, he was really a bad cookie, this Pari, and he was in charge of the whole world. Because he is literally, in his shoulders, he is the essence of the Eivusar. But that's what's written in the Sikha. Therefore, Hashem said, I will be with you, because if I'm not with you, then I can understand you're not going to be able to take it. So therefore he said to him, Atzmas Mahus, I've got to go with you. If it's Atzmas Mahus, I will take you along. Lochein, Lo Yochel Moshe Rabbeinu Lizboel Zayt. And Moshe said, Mitzad himself, he can't take this. Lo Yoyer. If you talk about coming to Pari's river, well, the whole davar haroim is la madregas kedosha anitnes leklita. If you say to go to the river or go to another area or another thing, which in Ruchnis represents levels, I'm prepared to go. He said that I can go. Ein la Moshe Rabbeinu bayar. He doesn't have a problem with that. Avol lahagi lepari. Ba'atzmai, haroim is leguluim shalamayla mikol bola. It's completely beyond everything. Gilui atzmuzi is bola. Yetzer lo yachol Moshe yebetoy a nivra mugbal. Sof kosof, he's also a nivra mugbal Moshe. Look how he wasn't able to take that. Yetzer he said to Hashem, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Yeah, ובזה צדק פרעה ואומרי, ביום ראויסך פוני תמות. And therefore, he said, if we just take that Seder, Moshe Rabbeinu, the way it is, compared to Parah in Kedusha, then that what Parah said to him, if you ever come back to see me again, then you're going to die. Yeah, that's what's written in the passage. So, it was such a high level that if Moshe Rabbeinu, the way he is now, if he would have come to that level, it could be Talmud. He wouldn't be able to take it. Yeah, Ukadiri Moshe, Cain Dibarta. Moshe said to him, you're right, I'm not going to see you again, meaning I can't reach that level. In other words, he said to Parah, you're right. Ki be'emes mitzadatzmoi, in his own right, lo yochel Moshe lekabel es a madrega Parah to Kedusha, which is mamish atzmas ein sof himself. Moshe Rabbeinu is not able. I have to go with you, and I'll give you the strength and the koach, and you'll be able to. Ki kasher HaKadosh Baruch Hu atzmoi, moivilas Moshe Rabbeinu, he moves Moshe Rabbeinu along, and he's carrying him, and he's working with him. Ein kol baya, then there's no problem. Lechaber hafokim, yeah, mitzad HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he can join together absolute, they call them extreme opposite. Yeah, u'biyacholta ligroim shegam nivra neshama b'guf. Yeah, Moshe Rabbeinu, how he is mitzad ha'inav ha'neshama ha'guf, that he'll be able to yuchol hakabel es ha'giluim ha'gavoyim biyoter. He can receive the highest possible inyonim, even atzmazeh. In other words, that Moshe Rabbeinu was right. Mitzad atzmoi b'neshama ha'guf, he couldn't take it. But if Hashem will go with him, then he'll be able to take it, and then two opposites. Neshama b'guf will be able to receive atzmas eitzai, atzmas amor. That's an amazing thing. So the Rebbe said, Nes zeh, it's a nes, Moshe Rabbeinu keneshama b'guf, mugba, yochel lekabel es hagiluim hagavoyim biyoter, even atzmas eitzai, lo yinasa stam kach, אלא כחלק משלבי היציאה והגאולה ממצרים. He said, why did it have to be that way? Because that's what started off and made possible the whole thing of going out of Mitzrayim. Now, what is the whole thing of going out of Mitzrayim? So the Rebbe builds the case here that what was the whole point of going out of Mitzrayim? Matan Torah. The whole point of going out of Mitzrayim was to receive the Torah. Therefore, Hashem said to Moshe right at the very beginning, "Pohitziacho es ha'am hazeh, ta'amdun es Elokim ala har hazeh." On Mahachorev, when he appeared by the snare, by the burning bush, Hashem said the whole purpose of me appearing here is for you to take out the Yidden, and they'll serve me on this mountain. So Rashi says, what does it mean? They'll serve me on this mountain, Matan Torah. The whole purpose of going out of Egypt is Matan Torah. What is Matan Torah? Oh, come on, you guys.
Mashiach, the possibility for Mashiach. The possibility for Mashiach.
Yeah, it's the word of Mashiach. Not him. But what is it in concept? What is it in Matan Torah? The chibur of Atzmas Ein Sof with a limited person. Yeah, you do a mitzvah with your goof, the way you are in a world limited and a goof limited. You had to go to limited, proprietary limited. You're all limited, yet what do? You bring down Atzmas Ein Sof. Matan Torah. What's Rashi bring over there? That there was a gezerah that the Elyonim never come to the Taktonim, and the Taktonim never go to the Elyonim. Matan Torah, Kodesh Baruch Hu was mavatal the whole gezerah, and the highest inyonim, Atzmas Ein Sof, comes down, they link up, and the world and Elokus become one inyan together. There had to be a preparation for that. You follow? And who's going to prepare the people for that? The leader of the Jewish people, Moshe Rabbeinu. He gets the job. Therefore, in Kedusha, he had to go in to Parah. Parah means Atzmas Ein Sof. And he said, I'm sorry, Rebbe, even I can't manage that. It was just before Matan Torah. So they said to him, yeah, you're right, my boy, but I'm coming with you. If I come with you, then it's going to work. And what happened is it's going to be Gilui Atzmos Ein Sof, even to a limited neshama in a goof like you. So the Rebbe says that is the whole Indian that are going out of Egypt.
What aspect of Hashem is going with him if he's going into Hashem?
That's a good
what
question.
aspect is going with?
It's Kil Hashem going to himself.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the Atzmos of the Eibusha is taking Moshe Rabbeinu to the Atzmos. In other words, the Hashem is like giving Moshe Rabbeinu the koyach that he should be able to find him. That's the pshat. Amit. You follow? In other words, that Hashem has tremendous rahmanas. That in the end, as he said, he's the jack of all trades. This is what I think. The person who does everything. Hashem reveals himself to you. Hashem made you, and he made you on the Shom of a Guf. He also gives you the power to know him. You follow?
Yeah, but if Atzmut becomes his escort, he's got the same problem. He can't be with Atzmut. That's why Hashem needs to go with him, because he can't handle Atzmut. So Atzmut comes as his escort.
What's he saying?
He's saying it's a stira b'nei ubei, that Atzmos is coming with him, but he can't be makabel
Well, I'm
Atzmos.
Atzmut. I'm coming with you. He can't handle that either. Then.
And the day what Atzmos is going with him, then he can be makabel Atzmos. And what does that mean? That Atzmos gives him the power that he should be able to makabel Atzmos the way he is. Unlimited neshama. That's not a stir. No. That's the amazing message. So it's like that he said, Hashem's the jack of all trades. He's the, how do we say it, who it's written by the Lahavdil, a billion Ador, but the Yetzirah, who are Yetzirah, who are Malach, he's everything. Everything not good is the Yetzirah. So the Lahavdil, billions and billions of dollars, Lamailas also, the Abish is everything. He's the one, he's the power, he's Moshe, he gives him power, it's all Hashem. It comes out of that Hashem is making it possible that a limited neshama in a limited guf should be able to be mamshich, oyer ein sof, mamish, atmos ein sof, lamat. Geulas Mitzrayim, says the Rebbe, hoyesol tzorek matorah achas. The going out of Mitzrayim had one and only goal, lahagir lamatan Torah. Kenema, v'hoitziacho es ha'am mimitzrayim ta'avdun es ha'elikim al ha'ar hazeh. When you'll take the people out of Mitzrayim, you'll reach this mountain and you'll serve me. That's Matan Torah. A chiddush of Matan Torah. What is a chiddush of Matan Torah? I'm sorry. The chiddush of Matan Torah is chibur elyonim v'yetachtonim. Like we said, the joining of the high with the low, and they come together. So he says, Matan Torah nosan es hakoyach lekayem Torah mitzvahs u'lahagshim es hamatorah ha'elokis, and to make real the goal of Hashem. The whole meaning of Torah mitzvah is dira b'tachtoinim. What is dira b'tachtoinim? That's a physical world, this crazy circus called Olam Hazeh. It's going to be a dira for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's a dira? You dwell in the dira. In other words, Hashem is going to enter with all of his atzmas this limited and pretty crazy world. That's the whole meaning of Matan Torah is dira b'tachtoinim. And that's how, by that, we're going to come to the Gula Shlema. Because the whole meaning of the Gula Shlema is going to be dira b'tachtoinim, perfect. So there he says, Yechiv l'lasses l'kosh dira b'tachtoinim, shekam ha'olam ha'gashmi v'hamugbar, yuchal yeah, lahavis dira lakodesh baruch hu, chibur alyonim v'tach, toinim with the highest inyonim will join together with the lowest inyonim. Dira, what is a dira? It's written in the Sikha that the Rebbe says, if you don't go your whole atmos into the dira, then it's not really a dira, it's just something you own, but it's not a dira. A dira is you got to go in there with your whole atmos and be there. Then it's your dira. Omer said the Rebbe dira b'tachtonim means that we're going to make this physical world a place where Hashem is going to enter, but there are pnimiyah. He's going to be mislabi in the physical world, lamata. And that's an impossibility. Das kann nicht sein. So how did that all begin? Boy al parah. And so it all began with boy al parah. Come and I'll help you to be a limited thing and be makaval atmas. And that's in the Sinus Koyach. That's why the parashas is called boy, because if it hadn't been for that, you wouldn't have had the whole thing. You wouldn't have had Yitzias Mitzrayim, you wouldn't have had Matan Torah, and you wouldn't have Dira Doctrine. Yeah. I know it's with you guys, everybody's very calm. That's absolutely amazing the way that everybody's pulled it. You don't agree? It's absolutely. So now we can sort of begin to picture what's it got to do with Moshiach? What's it got to do with Eliyahu Lohem? The question is, how are we limited people? We all know how limited we are. How are we going to be Makabel Moshiach? How are we going to be Makabel the Gura Shlem? The Gura Shlem is Gilui Atzma Seitzeh, Polamata, V'zeh Hoilam Dira B'tach Toinim B'Shlema. It all goes back to Boy Al Paroi. It all started with that, and that was the Messiah's Koyach. Moshe Rabbeinu got the Koyach from Hashem to be Makabel Atmas. He's given that over. Therefore the Rebbe says that the Moshe Rabbeinu, he gives it over to all the rest of the Jewish people. So he says, Chelak Choshu, Mi Bitul HaPirut Beinu Elyonim V'Tachtoinim. So he said a very important part of this whole cancelling of the difference between Elyonim and Tachtonim, Itpatzea B'tzivui Hashem LaMoshe Boy El Paroi. Zeh HaKesher Shel Pasha Boy El Paroi L'Gulas Mitzrayim. So now we understand what's the Kesher. And now he's going to say that it's got to do the same thing with the Gula Shlema. And he's going to connect it with Yud Shvat in the most amazing way. But this was the Rebbe Rayatz. This was his whole inyan, was to bring the world to such a point that it would all be able to be makabel, to as it were, he himself experienced Boy El Paroi. He faced the whole Soviet Union with the ganze Meises, and that was like going to part like Moshe Rabbeinu. Through that he received the Inyan and Atmos Mamis, and therefore he's able to give it over to all the generation, and therefore the Rebbe mentions in the Sikha a word about Moshe, which I'll try to get over. Where are we holding now? What's the time?
10 minutes.
We've still got a bit of time. So it gets really pretty amazing over here. So he says, Kedei levaya zois heitev, in order to explain this very well, Tzorich lahachdim v'loima, shebaya doimer, that a similar problem Hisoirero, Bashar Moshe Nishlach Lohiti Yisrael Mitzrayim. That Moshe Hoya Kvad Peh Kvad Loshon. A Moshe had a cord, he was Kvad Peh Kvad Loshon. Had a cord, he couldn't speak well. He had a problem getting things into Dibur. So he said to the Avisha, Loi ish dvorim anechi, and so on. He said, I'm not able. So therefore he said, Moshe hoya kvad ped v'kvad loshen. Since we're talking how everything is mitzad kedusha, Avamela, he said, mitzad de'inu from kedusha, Moshe Rabbeinu haya na'aleh me'anashim kol kach b'kol anashim misvivoi v'lo yochol lehis kasher imam. Moshe Rabbeinu was too high, and he he couldn't make a kesher with people. What normally, how do we make a kesher? Through dibur. But since he was so high, he couldn't sort of make a connection with everybody around him. ולכן הוא לא רוצה להיות זה שיוצא ישראל ממצרים. על כך, what's written in parashas Shmois, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Mi sam pele Adam." Who gave man a mouth anyway? Haloi anoichi. What anoichi means, right? Atzmi ain't so. The average how he is on the madrega atzmi is. So therefore he said, "Mi sam pele Adam, kishem shani samti pele kolo anoshim." כך אוכל לסדר שגם אתה תוכל לדבר עם האנושים. וכן הויו. And כך hoyo. In other words, the Rebbe said, was a problem for me that you can't make a kesher with other people, just like I made the whole kesher with other people, the people speak, I can make you speak also. It's a lobayo. Of Amira, so the Rebbe says, Oisa habaya gambus beknisosa el pare shebekedusha. It's a similar inyan. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I can't manage this, I can't go in to Pare, being as he is, the inyan v'nei tzoy. He said, Emasu shel Moshe Rabbeinu atzmoi mitzad dargose hagaboya lo yehoyeso yebayo lekabel es agilo de Pare. The truth is that even though we pointed out in the previous thing that Moshe Rabbeinu said, this is what he timed to Hashem. He said, I can't really manage it because I'm a limited person that I can't really manage it. The Rebbe says, mitzad the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu, he could really. That ultimately Moshe Rabbeinu can achieve anything. He could have gone into Choshoshe, his concern, hoya ketzad ho'ilam, ketzad and neshamas begufim hamugbolim yuchlu lekabel. In other words, it wasn't so much that he was worried about himself. Moshe Rabbeinu mitzad his great miler, he could maybe have made it. He was concerned about all the generation around. And he said that I, as a neshama beguf, or I'm limited in a guf, I can't be makabel for atzmas. What Moshe Rabbeinu really meant was that he maybe could, but all the generation around, they wouldn't be able. All the limited people, the bodies in gufim adikut, inverted commas, normal people, if there's any such thing, people who are just, ordinary runner people, they wouldn't be able to makabel. That's what the Rebbe is now correcting. The Musik. So on that Hashem said to him, listen, just like who some pale Adam, and I made it all work, that you were able to talk to Pari, at least through Aaron or whatever, but we got rid of that. In the same way, we can fix up that everybody will be able to be makabel. If I go with you, and you're the Moshe Rabbeinu, you're the man, you got to. If I go with you, then Derek, that you'll be able to give credit to all the other people in the generation. When Moses said, I'm sorry, I can't really make it, he didn't really mean himself. It could be that he could. He was worried about all the other people in the generation. And he said, they're not going to be able to take it. So Hashem said, but if I go with you and you're the leader, then through you I'm going to make it to all the people. So the Rebbe says that the leader of the generation, the Moshe Rabbeinu, of the generation, he's the one that gives the koyah to everybody that they should be able to make a dira b'takti.
The Matan Torah, you have somewhat of a rerun of what happens with and Matan Torah, you have somewhat a rerun of Baal Paro, the Matan Torah.
Matan Torah.
So Achakak the Eden said to Moshe Rabbeinu, we can't take it. The Matan Torah.
The first two mitzvahs.
The first two mitzvahs they heard. And then they went to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, we can't take it.
Yidden said...
Yeah, it was given a call for everybody.
Yeah, but they only said they can't take direct connection with Hashem. They didn't say that if you will give it to us, we can't take it. Therefore they said, davar ator. If you will talk, then we'll be okay. And that's the Nakuda. Moshe Rabbeinu is like the central figure, and he is the derechim, goes the koyah to everybody. You follow? And and that's what the Rebbe said, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the person who's the Moshe Rabbeinu in the generation, he's also the Mashiach in the generation. And he more says exactly that a bit later on. And in another part of, in one of the Sikhs in the summer, he says over. He said the Moshe Rabbeinu Shebedur is also the Mashiach in the day.
Yes.
Moshe Rabbeinu, he is the key now. He's getting koyach from Hashem to give it over to others, not for himself. He ain't enough for himself. He could have maybe made it because he's unbelievably great, Moshe Rabbeinu. He's now receiving the koyach to give it over to all the generation. If he hadn't gone to Pari, there wouldn't have been the koyach in the Yidden, even to receive from him at Matan Torah. That's the word. They wouldn't have been able to receive derech him, to make the whole deal of a taktai. It was only through him. That's the important role of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he makes it possible ultimately for there to be the Gilui HaAtzmos in the generation and dira b'taktoim. Blochein nosen lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu es koyach ha'at b'gdei le'asher shegam neshomas b'gufim mugbolim. All the other people in the generation were there, Tachayer limited, Yuchlu lekabel es kol hagiluim hanifloim aboyim me'akadosh Baruch Hu b'atzmai. And therefore, Hashem made it possible through Moshe Rabbeinu, ki zu hi kol matoros habriya. This is the aim of the whole generation. Shagam hanivroim hagmugbolim. Bo'elam hazeh hagashmi yuchlu liyos dira l'akadosh Baruch Hu b'atzmai. Each and every one of us has to be a dira. That's what I remember of Nahum used to say, let him make anything standing in the way, he can make a dira. He wants that you should make the dira, and you should be the dira. You follow? That's what he wants. You should make the dira. How are you going to make a dira? You're just a little, I don't want to call everybody nobodies, but we're just little nobodies. Who are we? How are we going to make a dira with something? Moshe Rabbeinu got it through Boy al Paroi. Moshe Rabbeinu got it. Oh, Moshe Rabbeinu got it.
And we all have it.
He's going to give it round to everybody. And therefore it's written an amazing thing, but to get to Shabbat. It's written, we say in the davening of Shabbat, on the morning we say, Yismach Moshe b'matanas chelkoi. So it's written that by the Chet HaEgel, Moshe Rabbeinu lost 1,000 lights because of the Chet HaEgel. It caused a tremendous, you read it. Read, you have to go down, you've lost your Madrega. It's written on Shabbos, the Eibusha gives it back to Moshe Rabbeinu. On Shabbos he gets it back. He gets all that he lost. But it's the Arizal. You're a trusser. So you have to be proud of what the Arizal says here. The Arizal's a trusser. And so the Arizal said on Shabbos, he gets it back, Moshe Rabbeinu. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? You'd say, oh wow, this is great. You can put it in his pocket. Moshe Rabbeinu is a wonderful Shabbos, and everybody else, Matas Charum, as they say in Yiddish. So it's written an amazing thing in the Sefer Megala Amukes. He brings down, I can't remember exactly from where, that on Erev Shabbos, Moshe Rabbeinu is already saying to Hashem, no, where's my 1,000 lights? I want to have my Aliyah right now. So they say from heaven to Moshe Rabbeinu, what do you need it now for? It's not Shabbos yet. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, I need to give it out to all the other Yidden. He's not keeping it in his own pocket, but he gives it all around to everybody. I say, Frank the Megala Amukes. We see that Moshe Rabbeinu, all the big Inyonim he gets, it's just in order that all the Yidden should have it. And if all the Yidden don't get it, he doesn't want it. Unbelievable. What the Arizal and these guys were Megala, it's just unbelievable. That's what the Rebbe says here. Moshe Rabbeinu got it, everything's fixed. If he got it, we all got it. We're all able to make dira talk to him. So now you're beginning to understand why Boy El Paroi is such a very central in it. Without Boy El Paroi, it wouldn't be in the whole Geshem. That's why the whole parashas, Yitzias Mitzrayim, but Poyel is called Boy El Paroi.
It's the precursor. It's the precursor to Mashiach. It's the precursor to Mashiach.
This is all preparation for Mashiach. Yeah, sure. This is the same thing. That the Rebbe gave us all the koyach to get to Mashiach. He was mamsheh the atzmas that we should be able to get to Mashiach. It's all the same thing. He said, Pula zu hivta hachona v'aschola legul shel gulas Mitzrayim. כי המטרה שהעצם זה היא שבני ישראל יקבלו את התורה דווקא כפי שהם נשומת בגופים. How they are limited neshomas down here, b'riyim. I'm sorry, neshom begufim b'riyim. The Rebbe says in like a footnote, the Rebbe, well not a footnote, like in a bracket, that you have to have a gesunter body. The Rebbe writes, the guf has to be a guf body. The Rebbe was madgish on many occasions. You must be very careful to look after your guf. You have a koyach lekach. I mean, I don't know what he was up to, but that's what he wanted of everybody else. So he says, begufim b'riyim, v'akoyach lekach egiel ha-Moshe Rabbeinu, b'shas boi, come with me, el paroi, v'nimshach l'kol b'nai Yisrael. Through Moshe Rabbeinu, it went round to everybody. U'mikan ho'irua eleinu. That's the thing to us. He said, "Shegam bi'oseinu neshomas begufim gashmiyim, ba'olam hazeh hagashmi, yesh b'choicheinu lekabel es haTorah v'mitzvos, shehem ratzeinu shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chok mosei, shel hamayla mikol hagboles, v'atzmas, in other words, yeves ha'oiris ha'gavoyim biyoter shel hamayla mi'hagboles." Like he said earlier, pari, the kedusha inyan ha'atzmas. מכיוון שאינו מאוחדים, סליחה, מכיוון שאנו מאוחדים עם הקדוש ברוך הוא בעצמו. Since we've gone, we get from Moshe Rabbeinu what he got from Boy El Paroi, we're linked up with Atzmas. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu got, and he gives it to everybody of Amira. So the Rebbe says, that this was a inyan that happened the last few minutes before going out of Mitzrayim. In order to give the koyach that they should all be able to get out of Mitzrayim, there had to be this Nasinas koyach. So he said the same way, but again to the Inif and the Geula. We're all holding now. Erev HaGeula, we have to have this whole Boy El Paroi, and then the Nasinas koyach from Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Rebbe said that began with the Frierdiker Rebbe, and then he says an amazing thing afterwards over here. The Rebbe says, I'm just going to have to tell you because I'm running out of koyach and also it's getting a bit late, but what the Rebbe says is like this, that what do we see that Moshe Rabbeinu Kilo said that he is a representative of the Jewish people. He can see they're not going to be able to make it unless Atzmas comes down and gives them koyach, right? So first of all to me, and then through that I'll give it to everybody else. So the Rebbe says that we see a most amazing thing that the Frierdiker Rebbe, he was the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, but all of a sudden his dibur went very bad before his talkers. The Frierdiker Rebbe was not able to speak. So the Rebbe brings a story there that the doctor, he said to the Frierdiker Rebbe that he can't understand that. He wasn't a Fruma yet. But he said he doesn't understand this, that because the whole gift that you have to the world is going through your mouth. You speak and you give all the instructions to the generation what they're supposed to do. How come a Kodesh Baruch Hu took away your speech? That's what he said. And so the Frierdiker Rebbe answered him that Hashem knows what he's doing. Hashem knows what he's doing. So the Rebbe said, what does that mean? What's what it says? So the Rebbe says the most amazing thing. The Rebbe says that after the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away, and his speech had been taken away from him. He said, who finished off that all his speech continued and it brought about the final preparation and the movement into the Geula? Those who came after the Friedrich Rebbe. That's what he said. Now, the Rebbe always spoke in the plural. He was always very careful. They're not talking in the singular about himself. And he said, what are we doing? We are still talking for the Friedrich Rebbe. We are carrying out all of what he couldn't say because of this terrible blow. But he said, Hashem, just like Moshe Rabbeinu was saved by Atzma saying saved, he said, we are saving the speech of the Friedrich Rebbe. That's what the Rebbe said. And he said, we are carrying out everything the Friedrich Rebbe meant to say in those last kilos man before these talks. And what he really meant to say, he said, we're saying it, and he said, we're spreading it all throughout the world, and he said, we are the choir that are bringing Moshe.
In English, they have the idea, the royal we, the king, when he speaks, in the old days, used to speak, you say we. So
the Rebbe says that we are the power of helping the Friedrich Rebbe to talk. And we are completing what he wasn't able to say, so the doctor's not right. The doctor had a kasha, how come the apes took away his speech? So the Rebbe said, he didn't take away his speech. We are their speech. So we. And he said, there's never been such a hafotza throughout the whole world from immediately after these talks. So who's immediately after these talks? Who started spreading it out throughout the whole world?
Yeah.
That's what he said. So it's a mind-boggling thing. It seems to be a very painful passage where the Rebbe says, the Friedrich Rebbe lost his speech and the whole mind. Then he says, no. He said, we are the Friedrich Rebbe speech. We are carrying it all out, and we are bringing the Geula B'Peh. That's what he says.
We don't get to gain insight as to why it had to happen that way. We don't know why it had to happen that way. Why? No, that's not part of the answer.
That's not our end. Our end is we're going to do the work. And he writes a whole part in the middle that the Friedrich Rebbe had to go through the whole imprisonment and the whole night and all the Yisurim that he went through and everything. All that was in order to, like Boyel Parah, it was all like part of this going to the Atman. And he gave around to everybody else the power. And the Rebbe writes that very moving. The Rebbe said he saw how his father-in-law used to suffer. He suffered in Gashmi. Very, very moving. And when he was in prison, he didn't suffer. He was one month. So there you are. You are all a walking talking machine. We're all talking machines. We are carrying out the speech of the Friedrich Rebbe. We are the living sentences and words. And the Rebbe is the koyach for which it all goes. Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshiach, Shabbat.
You're talking about Paro Shebekadusha, the Erev Rav joining the Am Yisrael. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, you see, I have to tell you that the Rebbe says in Chelik Tesvo, of the Likutei Sichos, that Moshe Rabbeinu had a very special leaning towards the Erev Rav. And he wanted to be Makar of the Erev Rav. And he sort of, Kaviyochu, he got into a bit of a problem with him. Because they made the Ikea troubles around about Chacheta Egel, and that was, Rashi brings, the main problem was the Erev Rav. So the Rebbe says, Moshe Rabbeinu could have just, mourned that for the rest of his life. He didn't. And he was mataking the whole Erev Rav. There was the amazing thing that the Rebbe says that Moshe Rabbeinu was mataken the Erev Rav. In other words, you can't blame everything on the Erev Rav. A lot of people want to blame, even nowadays, they want to say it's like, Gilgulim of the Erev Rav, and they're the ones that are causing all the trouble. The Rebbe didn't know like that. The Rebbe even told somebody in Yechidah that that's not the case because Moshe Rabbeinu fixed up the Erev Rav. Yeah. And he said, Moshe Rabbeinu was a very responsible man. And Moshe Rabbeinu realized that he'd taken on himself a lot with this Erev Rav. He's got to fix it. And so he did. He did. So then I asked the question, so Moshe Rabbeinu was such a power that he wanted to be Makaro everybody. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want just the Yidden that received the Torah Sinai, that they were, he wanted everybody. I feel what you would call like the Umas Ha'olam and the Erev Rav, he wanted they should also. And why? Because like we said here, Moshe Rabbeinu received from Hashem the Atzma Ein Torah. Are you listening?
Yes.
He received from the Atzma, he wants everybody should get to. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu is the most amazing man that he couldn't take it that there were certain parts of the people who had a connection with the Yidden of Mitzrayim that they were missing out. So therefore he said, why should I did myself? And he brought them in close. And then there was trouble, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, I brought them in, I got to fix it.
Was there possibility?
And he did.
But there's
the whole Sikha in Test 4.
Well, could Moshe Rabbeinu have been Magaya Paro? Could he have been Matakein Paro?
Oh yeah, Parah is already bottled.
He did.
Yeah, Parah is already bottled. We're not Parah b'kedusha, chas v'shon. Parah b'kedusha is Atzma Ein Torah. But the clipper Parah that came through Ruby Shtalshalas, the Lamata, that was mitbatel.
Could Paro have gone out with the Erev Rav? Could he have become a Jew, Paro?
Oh, that's a good question. It looks like it, probably, yeah. Had Parah said he's prepared to join the club, he could have maybe made it.
there is
If he wanted to join the club, he could have made it. Yeah. He didn't want it.
Who are the Erev Rav today?
What do you mean, Lo Yadati Hashem? He said Parah, he doesn't.
Who are the Erev Rav today? About Shuvas, the Shluchim, who are the Erev Rav today?
The Rebbe says there's no more. Moshe Rabbeinu fixed them all up. Some people claim that the Erev Rav, all the Tzionim and those that cause problems about the left wingers and all that, they claim that they're the Erev Rav. The Rebbe didn't like it.
No. What about Esav? And
The
what
Rebbe
about
said to
Esav?
somebody in Yeshidus that he doesn't hold that way.
But what about a connection with the Erev Rav and Esav becoming connected to Melchat Sair?
Yeah?
Melchat Sair. Sair.
Melech-
Sair. How do you say it?
Who's Sayer?
Sair. And Esav together becoming like what we have now, the Gullus of Esav.
The Rebbe said in, when was it? Rosh Chodesh Kislev. It was already after Lamed Ches. The Rebbe said clear that Esav is already ready for the Geula. Esav is already Mavura. Yeah, I can show you in the Maimach Siddur. The Rebbe said, Oz lo yehoya Mavura, Ato Mavura. The Rebbe writes clearly. The Esav is ready. The whole trouble is that we're not telling him the truth. The Rebbe said if we would say to Esav the truth, then he would be Makabel. The trouble is that we're already saying, Balfour Declaration, Schmonzes, Mises, and Kotri, we're not really telling him the truth. And therefore he himself, that's the way they want to go. So
It's funny that Netanyahu's supposed to go to Congress in a week or two. He's going to give a speech in Congress. It's almost like
who is this?
Netanyahu going into Esav. He's going into the heart of Esav against Dafka, against Ishmael, against Obama.
It could be.
He's going into Congress.
It appears to me that something happened to this Netanyahu. He's gradually
waking up. Yeah.
He's mentioning himself out of it.
He has to. He has no choice. He just bombed the Iranians and Hezbollah. He has to.
The whole Tzionis is a terrible hell of a. And that is prevented, Rahman and Atlan, the emissary bureau of Esav expressing itself in the world. Because the Rebbe said that Esav is ready. I can show you, no matter.
I see it every day.
The Rebbe said,
I see it.
Esav Mochad.
But that's what I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing it every day with the 7 mitzvahs of Noah. People are just, their eyes, thank you. They're ready. Why not?
Things are gradually moving. Things are gradually moving. the world, how can you say there's an old saying, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, one of the first presidents in America. He said that you can fool all of the people, some of the time.
No, that's Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said that.
Lincoln said it? But you can't fool all the people. It's
close.
Yeah, close. Lincoln, Benjamin, Abraham, one of those guys.
The people don't like being fooled anymore.
Yeah.
No.
They're sick and tired of it.
The people in the world don't like being fooled. And they're starting to wake up. I'm telling you.
It's
I'm
coming.
not talking about the murderers and the bloodshedders. That's mamali. They got to be got rid of. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the majority of people in the world are beginning to say we don't want to be fooled anymore. You want to?
They're tired of being lied to.
Yeah. And therefore in America there's a whole thing about these Noahs, it's getting bigger.
All over
and
the
bigger.
world, not just America.
Bigger and bigger.
Millions and
But they
millions.
want a better world. They want a world with Satan.
And they want to connect to us. They want to be connected to the Jews.
There was a guy when I was in Australia, I remember, not the last time, the time before that, I was in Australia, he said to me, listen, he said, you guys, you Jews, you guys, you're supposed to be the message bearers to the whole world.
Yeah. They wake us up.
Why, where's your message? You know, that's what I heard from, an intelligent
They're going asking.
where are you guys with your message?
Non-Jews.
You don't hear it. He said, we're waiting to hear what your message is.
Non-Jews. From Australia, he meant.
There is some sort of a source that says that before the Geulah, that the Erev Rav were Sholdeit on Am Yisrael upon. There is some source.
Yeah, it's written in the Zohar. You're right. And that's why some people say that these guys are the Erev Rav.
But the Rebbe is Sholdeit, it's not like
But the Rebbe didn't like it. No, the Rebbe didn't go for it.
Yeah, so
The Rebbe even said, who was it? He said to somebody in Yeshidus that he doesn't want to go that way because Moshe Rabbeinu took on himself. And Moshe Rabbeinu attacked me.
plus it also divides Kol Yisrael.
And there's a whole sikha, a whole amazing sikha. But the whole policy statement is here in the sikha, the whole thing. It's a very long sikha, it's about 40 pages long, huge big sikha. But it's just so mind-boggling. It's just all, it all just fits, you just all see it. You see the reality of the situation, So it's, how the Moshe Rabbeinu receives the Atzmos from Hashem, and he gives it around to everybody, And the Megali Amuk is right that every Shabbat, Moshe Rabbeinu says he wants the 1,000 lights back. So they say to him, Almighty, but it's not the Shabbat. Wait a minute, when the Shabbat, we'll give it. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, I want it now because I want to give it around to everybody.
Yeah.
That is mind-boggling. That's what they say. I remember Shmuel Tzalal used to say, "Those are Lubavitch." Okay.
Yeah, that's how they talk in his minyan. That's how the Rebbe's minyan talk. They talk very funny. Lubavitch.
Yeah,
Lubavitch. Yeah, Belarus, they talk very funny in his minyan. I know somebody from his minyan. Where they can't Wamen. Wamen. And they can't say Reish. And Gimel. They can't say Gimel also. That's because it's Russian. They can't say Gimel.
Gambora.
Gorevich is Horowitz is
Hashem Gambora.
You know what it is? They take on themselves such a joke.
They say Horowitz is Gorevich.
What?
That's why the Rebbe said,
Gambora is
all
Gambora.
the Rebbe said, they also heard more from me. Even the Rebbe Mara.
Gambora.
How do you understand?
Whale-wum. Whale-wum. It's not Whale-wum.
How do you understand the connection of Paro? Paro's got his Paru, called Narim. There's two Perushim in the there's two Perushim in the Varmachos. What's the meaning of Paro?
Yeah. One is that Atzma saying that all the Urish remain more or less what they are, but the Atzma saying too gives them the power. to act b'li gvul. And the second pirush is that the etzem oiras themselves receive a yisoros from Atzmos, and they themselves become b'li gvul against what they usually are.
They sound like the same. They almost sound the same.
Whether you are queen of the madrega and it becomes your madrega, or whether you're really functioning through the koyach of the Atzmos. That's the difference.
And what's the difference between Nuhorim and Botzinim?
Can I have a couple?
What's the difference between Nuhorim and Botzinim?
Oranim?
Means the Zohar brings Nuhorim and Botzinim.
Oh yeah.
What's the difference between them?
I don't think about that one. Be'ez Hashem.
Anybody want to make wahain? Who wants wahain?
We could say that, you see, a butzin is like a candle. It's meant to light up something else. Uyir is just killer immediately. So it could be Uyir means even those Uyir, but their whole in is just like Alois, it's Atzmai, even they need to get out of her collar completely. Butzin are already lower Uyrs which are already lighting up something. So they got to get out of that hagbola.
One's shaykh Sofi, one's got the Mamali. One is shaykh with the Sofi Mamali.
Bedivin, yeah. Bedivin.
And why is it that every shaykh says that only Moshe can do? Only Moshe can do them. On one hand, it says that only Moshe can do the war. On the other hand, it says in the Zohar that it's the Eibush who does the war. At one time, it says that Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, you have to go into Paro.
Yeah.
And the other one, it says that the Eibishter was the one who was doing the war.
The image?
The Eibishter is doing the Melchama with Paro.
That he will go with him.
One side you say that Moshe has to be the one to do it, and sometime another place it says that no, the davar the Eibishter was doing it.
Yeah. You see, Moshe could be originally the kavanah was that Moshe should go. The ikh is that he should be Makava from us. Moshe said, but then later he corrected it and he said because the truth is that Moshe could have maybe done it, he was worried about all the rest of the year, not about himself. But upon him there was a statement on the part of Moshe Rabbeinu that he doesn't see that he can do it. It's going to be too much. So then Hashem said, oh, okay, I'll help you, and then you'll get it through my being with you, then you'll get it. Mm-hmm. You follow?
Like at the beginning.
After Mount Torah, Mamshik Yatvis Lamata, as everybody gets overthrew the whole inner Boyel Para. That's why the Rebbe said it's the center of the whole parashas. It's the center of the whole Testament, the whole Shiur. That's the end.
Moshe
Rabbeinu said that he can't. Moshe Rabbeinu said he can't, not that he couldn't. He doesn't see how all the generation can be makabel from him. That, you follow? After that, Hashem agreed to go with it. But the Ikka Kavanah was that he should go and he should receive.
I mean, that's what the Yidden said to Moshe Rabbeinu. We can't do it. You want to do it.
Listen, later on we see that Moshe Rabbeinu did a lot of this.
What?
We see later on in a lot of Inyonim that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do it himself. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'elokei Amen.